Think that karma will ever catch up to you?
I go back to that thing of like, I think it's a part of the narrative that people who have experienced an F-boy tell themselves to make it feel better. Or well, karma's gonna get them. But the reality is, if this is my karma, then damn.
Friends, I'm joined by two people who have volunteered their time and intellectual services to being honest. Wait, you don't like that?
No, it sounds weird.
Why? Okay, sorry. Let's do it again.
Volunteer time.
Today,
intellectual works.
Today I have a fuckboy and a previous fuckboy.
I like that.
You prefer that?
Yeah.
You okay with that, Cray?
We should start over again.
Okay. But first, I want to just make something very clear. This is not a video where I'm going to be giving advice or by trying to correct anything. I am here to listen. I collected questions and responses from my audience. I'm going to be relaying them to the two of you, and then you will just respond authentically.
Yeah.
That to be said, I think is very important if we want to see corrective behavior amongst the people that we care about. We have to provide them with resources.
Yes.
So we're going to be listening to an audiobook together as a team.
We are going to be listening to The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. Okay, so this is the classical guide to...
Definitely a good book for you guys to check out if you guys haven't, read it or listened to the audiobook or whatever have you. Along with this one here that you may see, The 3% Man by Corey Wayne. You guys check that out also. So I think it's definitely a good read for you guys on the up and coming, trying to learn more about yourself, how to deal with your opposite, how to deal with women, and just to be an overall good guy.
Cray, you self-identify as a fuckboy.
No, that's how you identify me.
Is that not true?
On the podcast, you said no.
Cray, how old are you again?
22.
22. So you're in prime fuckboy material. I was just gonna say,
right?
No, I'm not saying that you are one.
No, he's a fuckboy.
Oh, he is?
I was a fuckboy. I'm not gonna lie though.
Oh no, the way you're doing this chin shit right here.
That's the fuckboy.
The main thing I do though is just like, if I'm not messing with it, like, or they kind of just annoy me, I do a lot of ghosting. I'm not gonna. That's a fuckboy. That's a fuckboy.
That's like the second.
That's what women call a fuckboy, but what do you call a woman that ghosts? At the end of the day, women do that shit all the time. I think this concept of the fuckboy is just a woman's karma. At the end of the day, women can get upset if you want, but I think that's how it is. There's a lot of guys who really are genuinely interested in women. And we can say vice versa. For dudes who are F-boys, they may have their karma with some of these women. So it's just a circle, Tyrone effect, if you will, that goes on. But for sure, I'll get into my definition, but let's let him finish.
Ask you, the question I was going to ask you was, are you a fuckboy?
I'm a player, you feel me?
Sounds like something a fuckboy would say.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Well, how do we define the term? Let's just do that.
I think it's somebody who, he's a player. He's somebody who doesn't take women seriously. He's someone who has an abundance of women. He has a lot of options, and he doesn't mind exercising those options.
And to be clear, we're talking to two heterosexual men, but there's a lot of fuckboys who are in the queer community as well.
Of course.
Here's an easy one. The simple question of why. Why engage in a relationship with someone else that doesn't make them happy?
I think it's not that it doesn't make them happy. It's the fear of losing somebody that could potentially be better. So I think a lot of fuckboys, they go through this phase where they get a lot of attention from women. They're usually somebody who's very seductive. They're usually somebody who's attracting a lot of different women. So with that process, they know that there's always somebody else around the corner. And so they're just constantly holding you at an arm's length because of that thought pattern that there might be somebody.
Sounds like an abundance mindset, fellas. Or quote unquote, how people be throwing around the term alpha. This is who women want. Women want the fuckboys. I'll go back to that. If you guys ever seen that movie, How to Be a Player, right? Bill Bellamy's character, I think his name was Dre. There's a point in the movie where he says women have to be played, want to be played, they need to be played. They have to experience this type of guy who will basically treat them like this. They have to feel like their mind is going crazy over a guy like this. They have to have the fuckboy. This guy who basically is paying you attention, maybe solid, emotionally available, is completely into you. It's a complete turn off. So women, at the end of the day, you have no one to blame but yourself.
Better.
What is the genuine why? Like, why do you think, Cray?
Because it's easy. I think it's tougher to not think about yourself. You know, being a fuckboy, it's the first thing you do. Everything is you. What helps you out? What do you want to do?
It's funny to hear a man actually calling himself that. You know what I'm saying? I prefer when he said I was just being a player. You know what I mean? And a lot of times women do know who they're dealing with. And I think he's a young dude. I don't know if he's 22 at this time, but when he was earlier, it doesn't seem like too long ago.
You know, what can they do for you? So, I think it's easier than, you know what I'm saying?
But isn't it also challenging because you have to, I would imagine as a fuckboy, you are in a lot of arguments.
Not necessarily, you would think that. But usually, fuckboy would just ghost you. You try to argue with, sorry, but back in the day, if you try to argue with me, I'd just...
Very important. Men with options don't argue. You got plenty of women, you're not going to sit there and argue with a woman. And a lot of women know that, and they are going to, a lot of times, they know if they start an argument, then you're out. So they'll try to do anything to appease these fuckboys at the end of the day anyway. They're not going to put up with no shit with a woman when you got an abundance mind. Same thing with women. Women that got a bunch of dudes they're dealing with up until the point where he makes her fall in love. She's not going to deal with some dude that's trying to question her and argue with her and get all emotional with her. She's going to... Nah, that's the quickest way to get ghosted.
Just be like, oh, well, I'm just not going to text back. I'm going to text the other person. You know? So I think people think that the fuckboy is going through a lot of turmoil. But I think that's just a process in your brain to help you cope through whatever you've been affected by this fuckboy. It's just being like, well, they must be going through argument. They must have a stressful life. But the reality is that it's not that stressful because they just cut everybody off. They might feel guilty, but that might only last a little bit.
Oh, interesting. Because I would definitely imagine that you spend, because when I have had experiences before with people I would classify as fuckboys, we did spend a lot of time like in arguments.
Oh, it's interesting. I think maybe that was a nice guy.
It's cool, and he said the nice guy. It's cool to hear a woman talk about this because when women talk about these fuckboys, they take themselves out of the equation with the behavior that they do. Because women in general exhibit fuckboy behavior. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's true. Women in general exhibit the behavior that they do, but they can't take it when it's done to them. But they love it at the same time. Man.
I used to wear it like a badge of honor. So it became more important for me to be liked than it was for me to be authentic. Who was just trying to be nice and make sure that his reputation doesn't get slanted by your experience with him. I think the fuckboy, the guy who's actually in that truth of a fuckboy, he doesn't care about his reputation because it doesn't actually matter to him. Because it's like, when I think back to like my high school days, I was definitely deemed as a fuckboy. Everybody knew that I was like out there, and it didn't stop me from getting more options, which is pretty sad if you think about it.
Why is it hard for some of you to not keep it 100, even if your partner
said that didn't stop me from getting more options? Because women want this type of guy, and other women want the guy that other women want. I know that sounds crazy as hell. Women don't want a guy that other women don't want. Plain and simple. Even if she has to compete with 100 other women, she'll willingly do it just to see what it is that's going on, just to get that feeling.
Partner is being real with you. So part of, I think, the Fckboy Conundrum is the dishonesty, or it's honesty. It's saying one thing and acting another.
Yeah.
So saying I don't want a relationship, but still hitting you up all the time, telling you that they miss you, hanging out with you, going to go to get dinner with you. So it feels like the intimacy is advancing, but they said to you they don't want anything more.
Like they just can't give their full self to them because they're doing that with another girl, or you know, or multiple, or it's just one other that they can't decide, and he's going back and forth between the two. So he's half in, he got 1 foot here, 1 foot there with both of them, or it's just he doesn't want to commit to her. He thinks he can do better, and that's just for the right now.
Do people refrain from being honest because they're afraid that if they tell the person I'm not all the way that interested, that the person could just leave? So you keep them like...
I mean, you still have to say stuff to make them stay around because you still want to benefit right now. Well, you know what I'm saying? You're still trying to figure out what you really want. But it's kind of just like, you know, you work the job you're working right now, not because you necessarily want to work that forever, but it's because it's doing what you need it to do for you right now.
I think what a lot of people misunderstand about the F-boy is that he's actually very emotional. He's very in the moment. And so it's not that he's being not 100% with you. It's in that
He's in the moment. That sounds familiar, right? He's in the moment. He's trying to figure some things out. He's using you at in the moment until he can get something better. Does all this ring a bell, guys? Does all this sound familiar at this point, guys? Does it sound familiar? I know it does to me. You know, sounds like some things we hear on these airwaves a lot, right?
He's 100% there. He's 100% into you, and he might feel that. But as soon as he gets distance from you and he's talking to other women, that's when it's like, oh wait, do I even really want to do this, or do I really want to do that? So I don't think it's necessary that he's like straight up lying to you. He's just in the moment, and he's gonna say in the moment whatever he feels, whatever's going on, and make you feel that because he's feeling that. But it's that distance that where he starts to have his doubts. I think there's also some responsibility on the people who engage with fuckboys to listen to them. When they tell you, I'm not looking for a relationship, like... Not necessarily. I mean, it's hard to... It is the responsibility, but at the same time, it's hard to compartmentalize that in your brain. When you're... I think it's Raya.
Yeah, I heard that.
All right, we have a special guest in the house.
We're warning her about F-boys.
Baby's up. What can we do? Okay, important question here. Can an F-boy be changed?
Not overnight, but I believe so.
I think so. I think that there's two reasons why an F-boy would change. They either get tired of the lifestyle. Obviously, there's some F-boys that are 40 years old. But I think it can be. Can change. I mean, I changed. I feel like I was inspired by you. That can't be true, though. No? You know why that can't be true? Because there was zero semblance of that when I met you, even. Yeah, but... So you had to have already gotten that out of your... It wasn't out of my system completely. I mean, I was already thinking, like, hey, I want to find one woman. But I still had, like, F-boy tendencies. It wasn't like it just went away overnight, like Cray was saying. It's not going to happen overnight. But I think having that inspiration, whether that be you're not having the life that you want, or whether that be you to settle down with. And so it comes with age sometimes too, and maturity.
Now, this is my first time watching one of these videos, one of their videos. I guess they're like one of those couples, like the homie Clarence NYC and old girl. I don't know his situation. Like I said, this is my first time watching it. And obviously she has a successful YouTube channel. They do videos together. I just found out obviously they got a child together. So either naturally you get tired of that lifestyle, or you come across a woman that's similar to you and you get turned out, and she's not like every other woman that you met, and she's basically flipped the switch and doing the same thing you're doing, or has money, is paid, you know, and you may be able to extend the fuckboyism by, you know, becoming that uber homosexual, if you will, and living off of her. I'm not saying, because I don't know this guy, I'm not saying that's what he's doing, you know, or what he did before. But if you got a woman that can take care of you, which seems like, you know, a lot of these guys, which I would classify what women run into, and a lot of women that they are taking care of guys and they end up calling the guys fuckboys, but they're taking care of them.
For me, it was all about maturity, and it was all about just wanting a better life. Like, I was tired of
not really being fulfilled in that lifestyle. I wasn't fulfilled in that lifestyle. It was fun, but I wasn't fulfilled. Not the way that I am now. And I don't think I would have had that contrast if I didn't take you serious. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of them are still doing it at 40 years old. Because they never felt what it felt like to have one person that you're actually into and actually...
Like the wording of this one, because they said, can they be changed? So that means if you are actively engaged with somebody who is being like that towards you, is there hope to stick around to see if you can change them? Or is that like, you probably aren't the person? If you have to ask this question, you probably aren't the one to inspire change out of them.
Yeah, I think that in that regard, it's like this. I've been trying to do this lately and not listen to the exception to the rule. Can they be changed? Possibly. I'm not going to say no. But is it probable? Probably not. And I wouldn't bank on trying to change an F-boy. It really starts within.
He would have to be ready to come out of that phase on his own. If you just went in for that, like, I'm going to try and change him, I don't know how it would go, honestly, because he's been doing that, so he's probably going to keep doing that.
The real question is, what is the alternative? So you're not in a place where you're looking for a relationship.
You have to get tired of it, man. I agree with him on that. You know, he's speaking the truth on that. You either have to get tired of it or you come across something that's worth your time, something that you've never felt, something that's a woman that's giving you something different, or is able to take care of you, right? Yo, just my opinion.
You do want access to sex. You do want to hang out with people sometimes. Does that mean you automatically have to be an F-boy?
If you kind of just keep it straight up, I mean, you could do that as well, but it definitely saves more time, you know, fuck boy, you know what I'm saying?
So it saves more
honesty. I mean, if you're honest with what you, how can somebody call you a fuckboy if you're honest about, I know this, they might demonetize us because we probably been saying the F word so many times. But if you're honest, what can you be mad about? And a lot of dudes are honest, but women will turn around and lie and say that they were fooled, or he said he wanted a relationship, and, you know, which is bull.
Everything, you don't have to go into it. But, well, you know, kind of just cuts it off or just responds when he wants to. There's not as much explaining that goes into it. You kind of get to ignore things easily, brush things off. And it kind of starts to be expected of you. And when you start explaining things and you let them know everything that's going on, yes, they'll like that. But then when you stop doing that or cut back from it, it's kind of like, what? What's going on? So I think, like I was saying, it's just easier to play into that role.
I think that's the interesting thing too, because when your original definition of like they want everything, it's just selfish. So if you're honest, you risk losing the thing that you like, which is access to sex or somebody to hang out with or somebody to buy you lunch whenever. So it's better not to be honest, because that way you guarantee you get what you want.
I guess so.
Okay, why ghost?
Because you don't have to deal with awkward conversations. Nobody likes to be awkward. Nobody likes going through it. So just ghosting, it's like you didn't have to deal with it. After a couple weeks, you're like, okay, I get it. It's annoying, probably for the other person on the other end, but you don't have to go through any awkward exchanges or anything like that.
And I think on the flip side too, though, because if you never say why you're closing things off, you don't have to explain why you decide to open it back up 2 months later or whatever. Don't.
And people do that. Like, I don't believe in ghosting, in my personal opinion. People have their own thoughts about it. Well, you should know, you should learn, or you should know what's going on here. Sometimes people don't. And to me, I think it's very childish, in my opinion. Women tend to do it a lot. Not to say that men don't, but women tend to do it just out of the blue for no reason at all. And your guys are usually like, what happened? What did I do? Women don't want to hurt your feelings. Women are generally scared of guys. It's a passive aggressive behavior as far as ghosting in general. And, you know, in my opinion, some people say it won't, it's not. But I think it says a lot about that person when they ghost, and you can just be having a conversation with someone and they just stop talking to you. You think everything is going well. I mean, there's times when if you know what you did, you know, like you put hands on somebody or you basically got caught cheating, you know, an obvious reason. Yeah, we get it. But if someone you're talking to and something just happens and there's no explanation, you know, it's something wrong with that person. It's very passive aggressive.
Do you think that karma will ever catch up to you?
I go back to that thing of like I think it's a part of the narrative that people who have experienced an F-boy tell themselves to make it feel better. Oh, well, karma's gonna get them. But the reality is, if this is my karma, then damn. I feel bad.
Y'all see him? He said, if this is my karma, you know, I guess, and look at her laughing because he's like, I ended up with her. We got money. We paid. You know, I done did this, that, and the third. You know what I'm saying? Whether you believe in karma or not, hey, it is what it is. I'm a firm believer in it. I think our karma is a daily thing. It's not like something later on down the line. You live your karma every day. So I think the F-boy is a woman's karma, in my opinion. So you see her smiling, they're smiling. He's living the good life. That's now, buddy. You never know what goes on, man, but I digress.
You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. I think, yeah, maybe karma will come and get them, but, you know, I think that's hopeful.
Have you ever had an experience like this happen to you, where there's someone that you liked, that you were investing in, who was inconsistent with you, who was dodgy, you never knew quite how they felt about you?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely.
At the end of the day, kind of, she was somewhat like me, so I ended up just having to be like, no, this is not gonna work out.
Yeah.
The same.
Yeah.
So you cut it off with that person because
Yeah,
you
I
were
was
afraid
like-
of getting hurt?
We're the same, so I was like, it's not gonna happen to me. Like, you know, I was like, I already know how this goes. So I was like, I'm gonna just cut her off before anything can even happen.
You know why that's a great point?
And people tend to do that. That happens. That's happened to me. Like whoever cuts that person off or whoever ghosts that person, they have the power. And women are usually notorious for getting that power first until they encounter that fuckboy that breaks their heart, and he has the power and he'll maintain it, and she just can't get over it.
Because people would think that karma would happen to you, but the truth is you already know the game so well.
Yeah,
you're able to
back
avoid.
out before it even jumps into it. I've definitely had my fair share of dealing with the women F-boy activity. I think the times that I have ran into it, I knew how to maneuver in it, either A, to cut it off, or B, win them over. But I never was devastated when I got that type of activity. And I think the reason being is because I kind of understood it a little bit. Like, I'm like, I know what you're going through. You probably have a couple other that you actually enjoy more than me. And that's okay. So, yeah, I didn't really take it that personal.
Do you get mad at this activity?
A little bit.
Don't touch daddy's equipment. Dear F-boys, why do you always seem to come out of the woodwork around the holidays?
Need them gifts. You know what I'm saying? I ain't even gonna cap. Need them gifts. You know what I'm saying? You start acting good around that time, popping out. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, them gifts. It gets real crucial around them times.
Is that a real response?
When you start coming around holiday times, especially around Christmas, it's that cuffing season. It's that season of like, you know, I need to get around someone. Usually you're back in the same town of that person you experienced, or you get around family and they're like, so what's the girlfriend? Who are you inviting to the party? Who are you doing this? So you start getting asked those questions. So you start just running down the list of women that you know that you are comfortable with and that you can, you know, hang out with.
Is the F-boy really just scarred from their childhood and they don't know how to love as an adult?
I think...
My thing is, are we asking women these same questions? All these questions, are we asking women these same questions that exhibit this behavior? No, we're not. It's perfectly acceptable.
For me personally, that could have played a part in it, but I think the heavy piece that is missing here is it's not necessarily an abandonment issue. No, right?
No?
No, not biting the cords.
What can she do?
You gotta give her a binky or something.
What's her thing?
Yeah,
My legs are so sweaty. They're dripping.
Ask the question again. I don't think it necessarily has to do with abandonment or childhood scarring. Yes, that plays a part in it, but I think it has to do with what was missing, like the father figure that had to place that imprint on it. And sometimes you may have a good influence from a dad, but if you start getting attention early as a man, you start having options early as a man, middle school, high school, those type of times kind of influence you more than any good that's around you or any scarring that you've had in it as a child. And so it's really to do with the options. And if you don't have a strong enough male influence or good male influence to combat the options that you get at 13, 14, you know, going on to like 18, it's almost inevitable that kid is going to be exercising those options biologically. And so I just think that it's not necessarily a scarring. It's just the influence that you don't have to combat what is happening in front of you.
And if anything, because you're not taught how to have relationships, to Craig's point, you just go for the easiest kind.
Yeah.
And
Once again, men that have these options. There's a certain podcast, I'm not going to say their name, but he said, one of the guys, he said a thing. He was like, if you wake up as a man, he did an experiment, I think, on social media. If you wake up as a man and your inbox is just full of women just constantly shooting their shot at you over and over, and you have an abundance of women, even if you have an abundance mindset as a man, your inbox will never be like that of a woman. I don't care what you say. You're not constantly women in your inbox throwing themselves at you unless you're a celebrity or whatever. So once it gets like that, you tend the value of a woman is not going to be there as much as it would be as if you had to work for it. Same thing with women. Women constantly have guys throwing themselves at them, shooting their shot. So it's just like, this is normal, you know. So exercising that is like,
it's easy because you, in essence, get everything that you want without doing any of the things that are challenging for you.
right.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say it's everything that you want. It's everything that you think you want until you experience something that's really healthy and good in a partnership dynamic. You don't really have anything else to compare it to because you've been dealing with multiple women probably your whole life. At least I was. So
my dad, he didn't really like want us in relationships. So kind of just growing up, I had to learn all that kind of on my own, and I got all my own tendencies just kind of going through it. Basically, like my dad would teach me things about women. He would just be like, it's God's daughter and you have to treat them right and all that. But he never really taught me how to be in a relationship and go through it because a relationship to him was a kid. So he never really wanted me to be in that space. So just being as a kid, I was always kind of being sneaky with my girlfriends. So if I had one and he kind of got suspicious of one, as a kid, I honestly kind of got scared and I would cut her off for a second and I would move to the next one and I'd move to the next one kind of like that. So that's honestly where my tendencies started.
yeah, I can relate to that. I think my dad was heavily no relationships in the house. And I think it spawned from his experience. You know, he had a kid, he had me young, and he was so scared that we would go down that same path. So we didn't really get to talk about relationships in our household because it was, you know, looked at as a negative thing. So yeah, I can relate to Cray in that regard.
Well, I feel like the baby is asking us to finish this. Maybe this is warrants a part 2. This is a very interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you very much to Cray and Jared for coming and sharing your truth. Once
Alrighty.
again, we are going to be challenging toxic masculinity through literature.